Oh, Banjo Kazooie. One of my favourite games, literally of all time. Iconic franchise, incredibly iconic characters. Oh man, I just love it. Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie for N64 are both incredible. We don't really talk too much about the others. We've obviously got Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts for 360.
Who the fuck is that guy?
And then the cursed Banjo Pilot for GBA as well. Which we have covered in the previous video, but I'm not going to dive into again because, So essentially, Banjo's history is... Let's call it mixed. Let's call it mixed. From the highs of his triumphant return in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate... to the lows of Fat Banjo in Nuts and Bolts, and also just disappearing. By now, most of you at least know what the franchise is, so one day Rare just kind of sat down and thought, what if we took the gameplay of Banjo Kazooie and Tooie and then condensed it down and slapped it on a handheld console? The result was Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Revenge, released here in Europe on the 24th of October 2003 for Game Boy Advance. And there was also a mobile port in 2005 for some reason, but today we're going to be focusing primarily on the GBA version, as it is the one I currently have in my hands. Okay, so the basic plot of Grunty's Revenge is it's set between the first two games. So it's set between Kazooie and Tooie, and Gruntilda, the antagonist of the games, travels back in time to stop the events of Banjo Kazooie from ever happening so that she never loses in the first place. Obviously, Banjo and Kazooie catch wind of this and they set out on another grand collectathon adventure to stop her from ruining everything.
Oh man, you're just ruining it.
So, development for Grunty's Revenge actually began in August 1999, which was actually a year before the second Banjo game had even come out. And this was when Rare was still a second-party developer for Nintendo, and had not had the cursed Microsoft buyout. Which is obviously still a fresh wound for me, it would seem. So, it was actually planned to be on the Game Boy Color, and was originally going to be called Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Curse, and was being worked on by a small team. The story was different, it was set in a parallel universe, there was no time travel, and it was several years after the events of Banjo Kazooie. So, completely different thing. Anyway, this production didn't last too long, it was halted in late 1999. Fast forward until the release of the Game Boy Advance, and then they thought, oh, let's do that. So production restarted, they retitled it to Grunty's Revenge, changed the plot so it would squeeze into the series a bit better, and along came this game. Now, I'm very pleased to announce that unlike the other two random Banjo games that aren't the first two games in this series, Grunty's Revenge is an adventure platforming game. The gameplay is very similar to the first two games. Obviously, it has its limitations because it is on a Game Boy and not a home console, but it is still a collectathon with platforming, which is all we wanted. And I'm looking at you, Nuts and Bolts, that's all we fucking wanted. Now, the game had 5 levels, which were all accessed from the overworld, which was Spiral Mountain, the iconic location itself. Each level features a boss fight with Gruntilda, or, again, everyone's favourite Klungo, which, just saying it out loud, is just fantastic. Klungo. And on top of that, there's also mini-games, including fishing, racing, and target shooting. Now, perhaps racing was a nice little teaser of what was to follow after this game released. Banjo Pilot. But, yeah, the mini-games, they're good. They're actually good. In some games they're not, but this... it's pretty good. Now, one thing I always love to do with these singular game-focused videos is try and find, like, some old 2000s, late 90s advertisements, or, like, commercials, if you want to say that, from the game. But genuinely, there was, like, one trailer for this from, like, E3 that was, like, the lowest res with no sound. But I did find this incredibly cursed Banjo Tooie advert that you just need to see it. So, please enjoy.
I don't think you know what you're doing! You need a parachute! That's a backpack!
Oh, alright. Kazooie? Banjo and Kazooie have disconnected, now working individually and as a team to tackle their biggest adventure yet, Banjo Tooie. Rated E for everyone. Just remember, bears still need a bird to fly.
Anyway, we've discussed the development and the gameplay of Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. Now we can focus on what the public thought of it.
I mean, it's alright, like...
And then we'll get to what I think of it. So the Metacritic score is 72 out of 100, which is respectable. It is respectable. Overall, I think across the board, it's kind of mixed reviews, I'd say. I think the biggest criticism with this game is it's the length. You can literally finish this entire game in like an hour, maybe two. It's not long at all, which is a shame, because it would have been, you know, a full-priced GBA release back in the day. So, and not only is the game short, it's quite easy, I can't lie. I mean, we weren't exactly expecting a challenge, but like, it's so easy that you can just breeze through it. There's no like difficulty, and there's not really any replay value either. But what you do get when you are playing the game is genuinely really good. The camera angles aren't anywhere near as janky as they were back in the N64 days, but obviously that's because it's like an overhead view. So, although that fixed some issues, that did bring its own problems in, which was it was kind of difficult to judge like heights, but it's a small price to pay for a platformer of that degree on the Game Boy Advance, and it's a price that I'm willing to pay.
The hardest choices require the strongest wills.
Now, I personally really enjoyed my time with this game. I actually, before I even decided to make a video on this, just had the urge to buy it because I'd never played it before. So I've recently revamped Game Boy Advance for myself. I'll pop it on the screen now. And I thought, what better way to christen this incredible device than by playing Banjo Kazooie? So I'd played through it already before then redoing it for the video. So it's a good game. It's a good game. I like it.
Wow, what a twist. Not really.
You know, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but could be a hell of a lot worse. It could be Banjo Pilot, or it could be Nuts and Bolts. So, swings and roundabouts, my friends. Swings and roundabouts. Okay, so we've reached that point in the video where we discuss more hidden things and secrets and development facts that you might not know. Now, the first thing is that for some reason this game just was not released in Japan. Now, this might have something to do with Microsoft and the publisher THQ maybe, because obviously this game wasn't a Nintendo published game anymore. That's the only thing I can think of, but there is no actual official reason to it. There's a few regional differences between the US and the European version. There's nothing particularly notable, but they're still quite interesting because they just shouldn't really be there. So, in the opening sequence, the story text that comes up on screen on the US version is shifted on the left, like it's left-centered, whereas in the European version it's central on the screen. It's, I don't know, just a weird, pointless fact for you there.
No way!
Another interesting fact is that the boss fight on Breagull Beach in the European version, the pirates take literally a second longer to appear in the final phase of the fight. Completely random, no idea why or how. It's clearly just some kind of oversight, but there we go. Thanks for that one, Rare. And the only other difference between them is the American version has no way of switching language. Although there's other languages on the file, you just can't change it, including French, German, Spanish, and Italian. That kind of really covers it for all the kind of code secrets and everything. There's not too much in there. A prototype of the game got leaked about a decade ago, which you could check out for yourself online. Other than that, there's really not that much. There's a debug menu you can access that allows you to warp to different levels and change your transformation into the mouse, the candle, so on and so forth. But other than that, the game's well made. There's not really much bug-wise. It's just going about his life. Banjo's life. Okay, so that's really all I've got to say about this game, to be honest with you. I've had a good time reviewing it, playing it, just talking about it. So thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell for notifications, the whole shebang, which will really help me to continue in future and keep making weird videos on niche games and all sorts of stuff, which I'm very excited about. Anyway, I shall see you all in next week's video.
What is that? It's alright. What is that? What is that? What is that? Fuck off, will you?